Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel, Bachelor Nation News Vans. The California sun draped its golden warmth over the vineyard where the Golden Bachelor group date was set to unfold. Rows of grapevines stretched like threads of time, shimmering in the late afternoon glow. The setting was intentionally poetic, an homage to second chances, mature love, and the sweet intoxication of discovery. Cindy adjusted her cream-colored dress as the cameras rolled. She wasn't here for the lights or the microphones clipped to her neckline. She was here because of him, Mel. Mel, the man who could melt hearts with a glance. A widower with soft eyes and a disarming laugh that carried a kind of grief that only love could heal. Cindy, in her 60s, had lived a life full of chapters: motherhood, loss, and rediscovery. But this was a chapter she never thought would be written. The producers had teased that today's date would be different. The women had gathered around a long wooden table under a canopy of vines, wine glasses catching the sunlight like jewels. The chatter was easy, but every woman there knew that beneath the laughter, hearts were racing with quiet competition. Mel arrived, looking effortlessly timeless in a light blue linen shirt and beige slacks. The women clapped, but Cindy couldn't move. There was something in his eyes, something that didn't quite fit the easy smile on his face. "Ladies," Mel began, his voice warm, "today is all about truth, about sharing a piece of your heart and listening when others do the same." The women exchanged curious glances. Cindy's heart skipped. Then Mel added, "And a little surprise for later." A murmur of intrigue rippled across the group. Mel grinned mischievously and took his seat at the head of the table. Cindy tried to steady her breath. She'd been on several group dates before, but this felt electric. Something was building, an undercurrent she couldn't name. The conversation game. The first glass of Chardonnay was poured, and the date began with a game. The question jar, the producer announced. Each woman would draw a question about love, loss, or passion, answer it honestly, and then ask Mel one in return. The jar was filled with handwritten notes. The questions were simple, but the answers often weren't. When it was Cindy's turn, her fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded her card. Describe the moment you realized you were truly loved. She looked up. Mel's gaze was steady, almost searching. The moment I realized I was truly loved wasn't during a romantic dinner or a big gesture. It was after my husband passed. My daughter showed up at my door with his old sweater and said, "Mom, he'd want you to keep living." It was love, wrapped in grief. That kind of love doesn't end. It just changes shape. The table fell silent. Even the crew seemed to pause. Mel nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. "That," he whispered, "was beautiful." Cindy felt her cheeks warm. There it was again. That look. The one that said he saw her, not the competition. Then it was her turn to ask. She leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mel, what's something you've never told anyone here?" Mel smiled, almost nervously. "That's quite the question, Cindy," he chuckled, but his tone carried something deeper. "I guess..." He paused, eyes flicking to hers again. "Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I write things down. Letters, mostly. To people who've touched me, or changed how I see love." A few of the women giggled playfully, but Cindy's pulse quickened. Letters? She'd once mentioned, weeks ago, that she used to write letters to herself after her husband's passing, as a form of healing. Mel had listened intently then. Was this connected? Mel raised his glass. "To the letters we haven't yet written." The women echoed the toast, but Cindy's heart was elsewhere. A whisper in the wind. As the sun dipped, the producers announced a short break for the women to explore the vineyard before dinner. Cindy wandered down the path toward the rose garden. The scent of the blossoms mixed with the crisp air, comforting, nostalgic. She was alone until a quiet voice called behind her. Cindy. It was Mel. He walked up slowly, carrying something in his hand, a folded note. Her breath caught. What's that? Mel smiled gently. A message, but you can't read it just yet. Her eyebrows knit in confusion. Why not? He looked toward the horizon, then back at her. Because timing matters. Some words need to find you at the right moment. Her curiosity burned. So, when? He slipped the note into her hand. His fingers brushed hers, sending a ripple of warmth up her arm. Before she could respond, he walked away, leaving her standing amid the roses, the folded paper pressed to her heart. Cindy exhaled shakily. What could it be? A confession? A goodbye? Or something she wasn't ready to feel again? The cameras caught none of it. This was between them. Dinner under the stars. The dinner table glittered with candlelight and silverware. Conversation flowed, but Cindy barely tasted her food. The note sat in her purse like a live ember. At one point, Mel caught her eye across the table and smiled, that quiet, knowing smile. She tried to smile back, but her heart was already tumbling into chaos. The women laughed, the wine sparkled, and the night wrapped around them like silk. Yet Cindy felt detached, floating in anticipation. When the evening wrapped, Mel stood and thanked everyone. I'll see you all at the rose ceremony tomorrow night, he said warmly. But when his gaze landed on Cindy, it lingered just a second too long. And she knew. This wasn't over. The secret unfolds. To be continued. Cindy slipped into her car, the vineyard lights fading behind her. With trembling fingers, she pulled the note from her purse. The paper was soft, folded twice with care. On the front, in Mel's handwriting, were 3 words that made her heart stutter. Read this alone. She hesitated, then opened it. The words inside were brief, but they changed everything. You remind me of a letter I never sent, a love I wasn't brave enough to keep. But maybe this time, I will be. Cindy gasped, her eyes blurred with tears as she reread the lines. Her world spun with emotion, confusion, longing, fear, hope. What did he mean? Who was the letter about? And why her? The Golden Bachelor twist had just begun. The note rested on her nightstand, its edges curling slightly from the humidity of her tears. She kept rereading the words. You remind me of a letter I never sent, a love I wasn't brave enough to keep. But maybe, this time, I will be. What did it mean? Was Mel confessing to her, or was it something from his past? She could still feel the warmth of his hand when he'd pressed the paper into hers. By sunrise, the vineyard had turned to mist and memory. Cindy brewed a cup of tea, but her mind buzzed louder than caffeine. She knew she shouldn't overthink it. This was the Golden Bachelor, not a fairy tale. But still, there was something different about Mel's words. They weren't performative, they were personal. The producers called the women together that morning for interviews. The rose ceremony was that evening, and tension lingered like fog. Confession in the confessional. When Cindy sat in the interview chair, the producer smiled sympathetically. So, Cindy, last night seemed emotional for you. You and Mel had a private moment in the garden. How are you feeling? Cindy hesitated. She wanted to protect the intimacy of what had happened, but this show was built on vulnerability. She said, I feel seen, she said softly. Mel doesn't just listen, he hears. There's a difference, and last night I felt like he was speaking to a part of me I thought was long gone. The producer leaned forward. What did he say? Her hand instinctively went to her purse. He gave me something. A note. The producer's eyebrows lifted. A note? Can we see it? She froze. She knew once the cameras got hold of it, the meaning would change. It wouldn't be their moment anymore. It would become a headline. No, she said gently. Not yet. It's not for the cameras. The producer nodded, understanding but disappointed. Mel's own confession. Meanwhile, Mel sat across the vineyard, being interviewed himself. His usually calm demeanor carried a flicker of unease. Mel, the producer asked, you mentioned writing letters. Are these something you've always done? He chuckled softly. Yeah, I started after my wife passed. It was my way of keeping my feelings from collapsing inside me. Words are powerful. They can heal, even when spoken to paper. The producer leaned in. Did you write something recently? He smiled faintly. Maybe. Is it for someone special? His eyes drifted toward where Cindy was standing across the field, laughing gently with one of the other women. His answer came quiet, almost like a prayer. Yes, it's for someone who makes me feel like I could start over, and mean it this time. The rose ceremony that changed everything. That evening, the mansion was transformed. Candlelight flickered off the marble floors, roses lined the walkway, and tension filled the air like perfume. Cindy stood near the back, heart pounding. The note was still tucked inside her clutch, its presence both comforting and terrifying. Mel walked in, handsome in a dark navy suit, his silver hair catching the light. He gave a speech about gratitude, honesty, and finding love later in life. His words were thoughtful, but I could feel the subtext beneath them. Then came the roses. He called the first few names, laughter, tears, hugs. Then he paused, looked straight at Cindy. Cindy, he said softly, will you accept this rose? Her breath hitched. Yes, of course. As she stepped forward, he whispered something that wasn't caught on camera. Meet me by the gazebo after this. She froze, but nodded subtly. The other women noticed their quiet exchange, curiosity sparking in their eyes. When the ceremony ended and the cameras started to shut down, Cindy slipped away under the cover of shadows and whispering trees. The gazebo. The night was cool, the sky scattered with stars like promises. The gazebo stood lit with fairy lights, the same spot where Mel had shared his first kiss of the season. But tonight, it belonged only to them. Mel was waiting, hands clasped behind his back. When Cindy arrived, he smiled gently, though his eyes looked pained. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. I wasn't sure either, she whispered. You have a way of making my heart forget it's been broken. He exhaled. That note I gave you. Yes? It wasn't just about now, he said carefully. It was about something that happened long ago. She frowned. What do you mean? Mel took a deep breath. Years ago, before I met my wife, I used to write letters to people I met, strangers, friends, anyone who made me feel something real. I'd write them, but never send them. One of those letters was to you. Her lips parted. To me? But we only met here. That's what you think, Mel said softly. But we met once before. A long time ago. Cindy blinked, trying to search her memory. Where? He smiled, sad but tender. Denver, 1993. You were at a community center charity event. You were helping set up tables, laughing with a friend. I was just a guest, sitting in the back, recently divorced and trying to find my footing. I remember you spilling a cup of coffee and apologizing to me. You told me, love is just like coffee. It's messy, but we still crave it. Oh my God, Cindy gasped. You were that man. You had the red scarf. Mel laughed softly, And you had the sunflower pin on your coat. Her heart twisted. I remember now. You disappeared before I could even thank you for helping me clean up. You didn't disappear, he said gently. I wrote you a letter that night. I told you that your smile made me believe in second chances, but I never mailed it. I was scared I'd already missed my chance at love. Cindy's eyes glistened. And now? Mel stepped closer. Now, I don't want to miss it again. For a moment, the air between them hummed, history and fate folding into one heartbeat. Cindy couldn't speak. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Mel smiled. You don't have to. Just don't walk away this time. The world around them faded. The cameras were off. The only light came from the stars above and the one rekindling between them.
The mansion was buzzing. Coffee cups clinked, curling irons hummed, and speculation floated through every hallway. Something had shifted. Linda, one of the other contestants, leaned toward the group, whispering, Did anyone else notice how long Mel and Cindy were gone after the ceremony? A murmur of curiosity followed. Cameras caught the sideways glances, the raised brows, the polite smiles that didn't reach anyone's eyes. Cindy tried to blend in at breakfast, but her heart betrayed her with every flutter. She could still feel Mel's hand, still hear his voice saying, Don't walk away this time. Morning, everyone, Mel entered the room, cheerful, composed, the perfect gentleman bachelor. The chatter quieted. He greeted each woman warmly, then looked at Cindy. Just a flicker of eye contact, nothing overt, but enough to send a shiver down her spine. The producer's assistant entered next, announcing, Ladies, today's group activity will be a sailing date. Bring sunscreen, smiles, and your sea legs. The women cheered, but Cindy's mind raced. A sailing date meant hours together, and nowhere to hide. The sea, the wind, and a secret. The yacht gleamed white against the turquoise water. As the women stepped aboard, laughter echoed across the bay. The breeze carried the scent of salt and sunscreen. Mel welcomed them with open arms. Today, he said, we let the ocean remind us how unpredictable love can be. Sometimes calm, sometimes wild, but always worth the ride. Cindy smiled faintly. His words felt directed at her. As the boat drifted out, champagne glasses clinked. Music played softly from hidden speakers. But beneath the laughter, Cindy felt the unspoken tension tightening. At one point, Mel moved to the bow where Cindy stood alone, gazing at the horizon. He approached quietly. Beautiful day, he said. Beautiful mess, she replied with a knowing smile. He chuckled. You remember everything I say, don't you? I remember everything that matters. Their eyes met, tender, unguarded, but before another word could pass between them, a camera operator appeared, feigning casual interest. Cindy quickly stepped back. Mel sighed under his breath. Can't hide forever, he murmured. I'm not hiding, she said softly. I'm protecting what's still fragile. The producer's intervention. That evening, after the yacht returned, Cindy was summoned to speak with the lead producer, Elena, a sharp-eyed woman who knew exactly how to read a story before it happened. Cindy, Elena began, we've noticed a strong connection between you and Mel. That's good for the show, but we need clarity. Cindy's stomach tightened. Clarity? Elena leaned forward. There's talk of a note, something personal Mel gave you. If that's true, we need to film it. Viewers love authenticity. Cindy swallowed hard. It wasn't meant for viewers. Elena smiled thinly. Everything here is meant for viewers, dear. Cindy looked away. Some things aren't. For the first time, Elena's expression softened. You really care for him, don't you? Cindy nodded quietly. More than I expected. Elena sighed. Then do me one favor. Think carefully before you open your heart any further. This show has a way of turning truth into entertainment. Mel's confession on camera. The next day's interview with Mel took a surprising turn. The producer asked, Mel, can you tell us what makes Cindy stand out? He hesitated, then said slowly, "Cindy reminds me of hope. She carries it like a quiet strength. I don't know what the future holds, but she's someone I don't want to lose again." Again. That word slipped through before he could stop it. The crew exchanged curious glances. After the cameras cut, Elena cornered him. "Mel, what did you mean by again?" He smiled faintly. "It's just something from the past." Elena narrowed her eyes. "Be careful, the past has a way of finding its way to air." The storm. 2 nights later, the show moved to a coastal resort for a romantic weekend. The ocean roared in the distance, waves crashing against the rocks. Cindy stood on the balcony, wind whipping through her hair. She could feel the pressure building between her, Mel, and the story the world wanted them to tell. Suddenly, there was a knock at her door. Mel. He stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him. "They're asking questions," he said quietly. "About the note? About us?" Cindy nodded. "I know." "Do you regret reading it?" he asked. "No," she said firmly. "I regret not remembering you, Suitor." He smiled sadly. "You have no idea how long I've wanted to say this. That day in Denver, I thought I'd met someone extraordinary. And when I saw you here, after all these years, it felt like the universe gave me a do-over." Her eyes welled. "Mel." But before she could speak, thunder cracked outside, startling them both. The lights flickered, and the rain began to pour. For a heartbeat, they stood in silence, the storm raging around them, two souls suspended between fate and consequence. Then, without warning, Mel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, weathered envelope. "This," he said, "is the original letter, the one I wrote in 1993. I've kept it all these years." She stared at it, trembling. You kept it?" He nodded. "Because something in me knew our story wasn't finished." She reached up, cupping his face. "Then maybe it's time we finally start the chapter we skipped." For a long, quiet moment, they simply stood there, the thunder softening, the rain easing into a gentle lullaby. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating two people who had waited decades for the same heartbeat to find them again.